Hello, everybody. Happy Science Sunday on Monday again. Late again. Happy late Mother's Day. Turns out you need to have a mother and a father to exist. Huh. Biology, am I right? Just what we're going to study. So make sure you thank your biological parents for your existence. Even though it was God, and maybe you aren't actually happy about your existence, then that's fine. But biology, you need to reproduce if you want to be a life form. That's what they said in the 9th grade biology book that we're reading again. Still in the first module. Already getting complicated. I've read it before in 9th grade. And so I thought, well, if I read it again, still trying to become a doctor, that's actually kind of hard to do. It's a little bit complicated. I remember it starting off simple and fun, and then it got complicated and not fun anymore and boring because it was complicated, not because it was easy, of course. But I feel like it's already getting complicated, and I've already read it again, and I'm only in the first module, and it's already complicated. So, what's the deal with that? Anyway, cells. That's what they went to. They wanted to talk about cells, and of course, they have the most confusing names. Prokaryotic. There's two different cells. Prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Like you're up, but without the up and the . So, basically, the pro is simple cells, and the is complicated cells with a bunch of little machines inside of them. Is basically the gist of it. So, what does this have to do with becoming a doctor? Why do you need to know what your cell is made out of? Why do you need to... And then we have to categorize all the life forms on the planet. All of them. And we already talked about all the different kingdoms, and, then they go down to class and phylum and all that. To species. But what's funny is they also have a different classification. There's actually a lot of different classifications. So the one that they use the 5 kingdom one, that's like the oldest one or the most popular one or something. But there's a new one coming up. Well, this book was written like 20 years ago, so I don't know if we used there's the 3 domains. Where was that now? They came up with three domains. The 3 domain system instead of the 5 kingdom. Well, it's 3 domains and then it goes to the 5 kingdoms. You know what's crazy? You know how I said that in the kingdoms, so humans are the main people, right? We're the main life forms. And then animals, and then birds maybe. Well, birds are animals. Humans, land animals, birds, then fish. And then after all that, we're like, what other? Oh, there's plants. Yeah, there's plants. I forgot about that. And then they're like, well, there's also fungi. Yeah, I guess so, but isn't that just plants, basically? Well, okay, and then there's bacteria and germs and all that, but nobody cares about those. They're just, because you can't even see them. So, the classification should go, okay, if you're going to have 3 domains then, we'll have humans as 1, maybe animals all together as 1. Kingdom Animalia definitely should get its own, if not multiple. They should be divided up into 3, because that's how God created it. The land animals, the fish, and the birds were separate. But no. And then the plants and fungi should all have 1, and then all the Protista, Monera, bacteria stuff could all have 1. That could be the 3 domains. That would make way more sense. But no. We're going to take Monera and divide it into 2. Monera, which is another section from Protista, which no one knows what any of those are. But we're going to take the Monera section and divide that into 2. So it gets 2 domains. And you know who gets the 3rd domain? Literally everybody else. That made me so mad. I was like, okay, I get the kingdom thing. At least they separated the animals. Like, we should have our own as humans, but whatever. And then Protista and Monera get to have their own. No one even cares about them. And I was already mad, and then they were like, hey, there's 3 domains. And I was like, good. We can throw all the fungi with the plants, and we can throw Protista with Monera, and then we can have our own. Like we deserve, because we're the best. But they divided it. They divided Monera again. If you're going to do the 3 domains, make us special. But no, we get thrown in. Now we're not just thrown in with plants and fungi. We're not just thrown in with warthogs. We're thrown in with plants and fungi and some other bacteria. So that made me really mad. But I guess the thing is, the reason why is because the way that the cells come together, you have the simple cells and the complicated cells. So if a cell, if it's just a single cell, or a few single cells together, maybe, I think then it's in Monera. Yeah, but then if it's a complicated cell, or I can't remember now. Yeah, a simple association. So there's another thing to remember. If it's a simple association as opposed to a complex association. If it's one single simple cell or a simple association of the single simple cell, then it's Monera. If it's the complicated cell or a simple association of the complicated cell, then it's Protista. If it's a... this is hard to remember. This is where it gets hard. It's already complicated. It's not supposed to be. This is 9th grade, guys. And I already read it. And whatever. If it's a complex association, how did they put it? Multicellular? Most fungi are, but it's a decomposer, then it's fungi. But some fungi are multicellular and some are, there's a few celled ones. So there you go. That's also confusing. And then you have plant kingdom Plantae is the autotrophs, which I already forgot what that means. I think that means they produce. They don't take. They produce. And they are multicelled of the complicated cells. And then we, the animals, we're the consuming heterotrophs. We take, we don't give anything, apparently. We're just worthless, I guess, according to biology. And we don't clean up, we're not decomposers, and we don't produce anything. We literally just consume. But that just shows you that the world was made for us, so take that, bacteria, who gets 2 domains, and no one can even see you. But this is the thing, though. They said that the bacteria makes up the 3 domains. It wasn't bacteria, they divided it up into, bacteria was one of the domains. And then from Monera, there's bacteria and then there's archaea. Right? Which is, I can't even remember. It's too complicated. And then eukarya is all of the cells with the eukarya, because most of the other kingdoms, all the other kingdoms are from the complicated cell. But the simple cell makes up the kingdom of Monera. And some of them are archaea and some of them are bacteria. I can't remember what the difference is between those. But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if you're trying to become a doctor. You don't have to know that stuff. When would you ever use that information? Anyway, where were we? The species. Okay, so we haven't even got to species. The kingdoms. Yeah, so Animalia, we're the consumers with the multicellular eukaryotic cells. That's Animalia. So does that make sense? Does any of that make any sense? It kind of does. It actually does, even though, and they admit in this book, they're like, this makes, by the way, credit to them, again, this book, they do a really good job of explaining it the best they can. But they're saying there's all these rules, and it's really confusing. And sometimes there's exceptions to the rules, so it's even more confusing. And they have a definition for kingdoms, and then there's, like 100 different phylum of the 5 kingdoms, and then there's a bunch of different, whatever the next one was, genus, family, class, till you get to species, which is the last one. So they don't have definitions for any of the middle ones, I don't think. But they do have a definition for species, which is what you are. Is basically, okay, this is what the definition is. A unit of one or more populations of individuals that can reproduce under normal conditions, produce fertile offspring, and are reproductively isolated from other such units. So basically, if you can reproduce. Again, it comes back to that. Mother's Day. What a comeback. That's the theme. If you can reproduce with something, that means you're the same species. So, hey, you learn something new every day. But it was really cool, though. I will say, as complicated as it is, they made it as simple as they could, and they came up with this little key thing. This little key where you can ask a question like, does it have a worm-like body without receptors on head or whatever, and then large, sometimes colorful wings, blah, blah, blah. If you answer yes or no, then you go to the next question that answers. So that was pretty cool. And you figure out what you are. You know what? Turns out I'm a Homo sapien. So I guess we're all gay. All humans are gay sapiens. Haha. Bet you never heard that one before. But because you name it by the genus? Which it comes right before species. The name that the genus is, and the name that the species is. So we're just sapiens. I don't know why we have to be called Homo sapiens. Why can't we just be called sapiens? Because that's our species. Nobody else. Is anybody else called sapiens? Sapiens? Whatever it was. Anybody else? Bacteria. Is there any bacteria named sapiens? I haven't heard of any. But it is interesting. To be fair to the, I always call it bacteria, but it's kingdom Monera. To be fair to them. Oh yeah, that naming it by this genus and the species name is called bionomial nomenclature. How many big words can we use? I don't even know why. Yeah, I didn't really get why it has to be named that. But I don't know. They said there was an oak tree. There's a red oak and a white oak, so you have to have different. They're part of the same genus, but they're different species. So you could just call them, I don't know, red oak or... Okay, then they did explain, to be fair, they did explain that you have to... The name sapien and all of species names comes from Latin. And because nobody speaks Latin, it's a dead language, so it will never change. So I was like, oh, that's smart. Right now we're called humans, but then soon we'll be called people. And then maybe we'll be called dolphins and aliens and who knows what. Because this stupid English language keeps changing because we speak it. So just stop speaking English so it can become a dead language, and then we don't have to keep changing. Why does there have to be 300 words that mean the same thing? Please. So, but I still don't know why we can't just name it after the species. What was I saying? To be fair to Kingdom Monera, I was going to say that. They said that their kingdom makes up the vast majority of life on the planet. And you can't even see it. Isn't that weird? I don't know if I believe that. How would you ever know? Also, how did he do it? Are we doing Adam's job for him? Didn't he already name everything? Did he name Kingdom Monera? I think he was only supposed to name the animals. Interesting. But I don't know. It was he classified them. He figured out which ones looked the same, and he just did it with his eyeballs. He didn't have to do all this. Well, this is what the cell looks like, so it has to be the same as this one. And he didn't even probably pay attention to Kingdom Monera, even though they're apparently the vast majority of life on this planet. Yeah, right. Come on. We can't even see them. Nobody even cares about them. Whatever. That's what we learned, so hopefully you learned from that. I definitely learned it. It kind of humbled me as a human. It made me realize that I'm a consumer who provides nothing and doesn't even decompose, because decomposing helps clean up, dead animals. I don't eat dead things, I eat living things, which is kind of sad. I have to kill it and then eat it. No, I guess I do eat dead things. So we are decomposers. I don't eat a living cow. I eat the beef after it's gone. I'm going to have to talk to the biologist about that. Anyway, that's all for today. But just remember, the earth was made for humans. So if you feel worthless, if you feel like you're not providing anything for the ecosystem, just remember that that's because the ecosystem was created for you. God made it for you. So chew on that.